second place. Eddie Irvine goes up into third place. Jordan and Peugeot are going to finish well up, and it looks as though both of them are going to finish if they just keep going. And if Eddie Irvine finishes in third position in the Jordan, it would be his first time on the podium in a Grand Prix.
Hi everybody, Eddie Jordan here, live from Silverstone. That was a great day for the team. This Sunday we'll be hoping to go one better. With the Grand Prix just 4 days away, we would like you to join us and talk motor racing. Helping me will be Tom Walkinshaw, owner of Arrows, 5 Live Maurice Hamilton, and the man who won this race last year and a former Jordan driver, Johnny Herbert.
And now the Union Jacks are starting to wave for Johnny Herbert. Johnny Herbert in the Benetton comes through Priory. Johnny Herbert comes through Luffield. And now he's in the second right-hand apex of Luffield. And the crowd are on their feet. The Union Jacks are waving. What a change! Johnny Herbert crosses the start-finish line, and Johnny Herbert wins for Benetton.
We'll also be joining up with Patrick Head from Williams, David Coulthard from McLaren, and we're here till 9:30.
So there's just one Ferrari left, there is just one Benetton left, there is just one Williams left. There are, however, still 2 Jordans left.
Let's talk motor racing. Join me on 0345 909 693. It's Eddie Jordan Star Night.
That is an absolute disgrace.
Hi everybody, Eddie Jordan here. Welcome live at Silverstone. I'm joined in the studio here with some of my friends and also people who can help me get through this programme. Johnny Herbert.
Good evening.
Tom Walkinshaw.
Good evening.
And Maurice Hamilton.
Already.
I think it's probably very appropriate that we should start with you, Johnny. Seeing that you won this great race here last year, I'm just like to first ask you, can you do it again?
I think it's going to be a bit more difficult this year. The Red Bull Sauber Ford has not been too good recently, but hopefully coming back to a circuit I know very well, hopefully I can do some stronger showings than of recent.
Tom, who do you look at winning this weekend?
I would have thought Damon has to be favourite. He will always perform a little bit better in front of his home crowd. He's on a roll, so my money would be on Damon.
Maurice, obviously a journalist, you obviously see things very different to we do, but maybe on this occasion you probably join us.
Yes, I mean, you can't avoid the fact that Damon's won 6 races, and he is certainly the favourite here. You read all the papers, he's the main man. He's got a very good car, he's very confident, given a fair wind, and no incidents with Michael Schumacher, then I think, yes, he's on for another victory.
Obviously, we'd all concur with that. I think particularly in the dry, Damon looks to be almost unbeatable. But we saw in Barcelona, of course, Schumacher drove quite an outstanding race, and it just really depends on the weather forecast. But I think for the British public and the race here at Silverstone, everyone would be overjoyed with a Hill win if we couldn't, of course, win it ourselves. But if I may just turn to you, Tom, for a couple of seconds, because I have to say, which I've never said to you in the past before, I must consider how you run 3 or 4 teams here at the one particular weekend staggers me. Perhaps you might be able to share some of your inner secrets with me.
Well, I wouldn't be running one. Some of our managers are running the other one. Obviously, we've got the Volvo team here in the touring car race, and that's run by Roger Silman. And we've got the Formula 3 team here. Andy Morrison's running that, so that leaves me some time to concentrate on the Arrows team.
And obviously, Maurice, just to round up the early part of this, I mean, the perspective as regards a journalist, is there something very different about Silverstone, or is it something that perhaps you have the same kind of preparation or feeling that most of us here at this table have with regard to the British Grand Prix?
Well, it basically means a lot of extra work, Eddie, because it is the home Grand Prix. Your publications always want that bit more. You also get bothered, I think, as everybody around the table does, requests for more passes and so on. So it's good, really, because it means, in my case, being a freelance, it means I'm getting more business, so I'm getting more money, so therefore the home Grand Prix is good
Maurice,
news.
I always thought you'd get in something about money at this stage. The fact that you're from Ireland, I presume, has nothing to do with the fact that the affinity to money.
No, not at all. I mean, as you know well, I mean, once I get it, we go down to the Saracen's Head and spend it.
Obviously never out of your own wallet, I would imagine, Maurice, but then that's another story. We're supposed to keep very straight and firm on this programme, which we will try and do. I just interrupt because, namesake of my own daughter, we have a Zoe Smith who would like to ask a question about Ferrari.
Hello?
How are you, Zoe?
I'm fine, thanks.
Good. What's your question, please?
I'm a big Schumacher supporter, and I think he's brought a lot to the team, and obviously I'd like to see them do well. But in your honest opinion, how well do you think he can do for the team, and how well can the team do over the next few years?
That's excellent. Good question. Johnny, you were his teammate last year. You probably know him as well as anybody else. Jordan were the first to give him a chance in Formula One, so I have my own opinion. But perhaps we'd hear yours first, Johnny.
Yeah, well, I think the guy has got a lot of things going for him. He's got a lot of self-confidence. He's got a lot of know-how and how to explain to the engineers what he wants from the car, and that seems to be probably his biggest asset, because he seems to get that across so well, and as he's done at Ferrari so far, very, very quickly. And I think winning a race this year has been fantastic for him. It's been fantastic for Ferrari and Formula One, and I think in the future years, probably maybe middle of next year, you might start seeing Ferrari being an actual proper threat for a world championship.
Obviously, Tom, at Benetton, when you were there, he won a championship. Very strong contender, great focused driver. Can you please tell us, maybe from the inside as running a team that he was part of, perhaps other ideas?
I think, I'm a fan of Michael's as well. I think he's probably undisputedly the best Formula One driver at the moment. He does get the most out of his team and the most out of his car, and forces everyone to focus on the job of winning. So I'm sure that the longer he's at Ferrari, the stronger Ferrari will become. I don't think they're a championship threat this year, but as Johnny said, I think by halfway through next year they'll get stronger and stronger.
Any particular ideas that we say, Maurice, is he good with the journalist? Does he communicate properly, and do you feel that you have a good rapport, or is he a bit aloof? I mean, obviously you would see things completely different to us, and because you have to get story and copies back to the various different newspapers and media generally, is it something that you can get into him, you can talk with him?
Well, when you get the chance to talk to him, he is very, very good. He's very polite. He listens. You get a good answer. You normally get a straight answer, and that's all you can ask for. But what's happened recently, which has been a bit of a problem, is that because he is so popular and because he is a very newsworthy story, it's actually become very hard to talk to him. And now he's perhaps understandably, in a way, because he's got so much on his plate at Ferrari, he's actually said that he will not do any lengthy interviews at the races. Now that presents us with a problem. We then have to go to a test session, and because he's with Ferrari, that's in Italy. This applies to all journalists. So that's something we've got to overcome. I can understand why he wants to focus entirely on the job, but he does also need to service the media, and it is causing a slight matter of resentment at the moment. But apart from that, he is first class.
But truly, that was, if you like, criticism labelled at other greats, if you like, Ayrton Senna, and previous drivers in the past who were at a very high level. And is that because he is so clearly focused that he is hounded almost by every journalist with accreditation at a Grand Prix, that they all want a story from Schumacher? And I presume that you must also, from a team point of view, if, for example, it was me, I would be protecting him as much as possible, as I do believe that they did in Benetton, Tom. There has to be a give and take. We understand that the media, of course, has to get a copy and justify why they are giving so many column inches, etc., to Grand Prix racing, and that, of course, has to be justified. But at the end of the day, there has to be some understanding of what the driver needs to do and his dialogue with his team. So, do you think you're being fair?
Oh, I am. I mean, I think it's actually gone a stage beyond Ayrton Senna, because perhaps you could argue that Senna was actually even more popular at his peak, and but yet he would always see you at some point, if it was arranged beforehand, at a Grand Prix. You might have to wait 3 or 4 hours till he finished the debrief, but inevitably he would see you, and you would have to go through it. Here I'm saying that Schumacher will not do any interviews at all at a Grand Prix, and that is a problem, because there are a lot of journalists to be served. That, I think it's gone on to now another level entirely, and it's a little bit more difficult.
Just from our own side, and Tom and I obviously representing teams here, one of the key aspects of the change of the timescale, particularly on the Friday, was to be able to allow drivers to communicate more, both from TV, radio, media, magazines, etc. And it left, if you like, Saturday for concentration on the qualifying. But Friday was one of the key areas, was that there would be this dialogue between the driver, if you like, the press.
Yeah, well, that was how it was sold to us, that's for sure. I don't think that the Friday, the change in the program, has been a success. I think it's it's a disaster for everyone, and it's taken a lot of the interest out of the Friday. So I hope that they change it. It's difficult when you've got someone like Schumacher who is so popular, as Maurice says, with the media. But the guy at the moment is trying to pull together the Ferrari team. And I can understand why he wants to be 100% focused on pulling that together. I think once you see Ferrari becoming more successful, then I think that Michael will again be more accessible to the media.
Zoe, I hope we've answered your questions. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. Next caller is Sam Burrows, and believe this or not, folks, but he's actually a professed Johnny Herbert fan. I didn't know you had any, Johnny.
Nor did I.
Can we take your call, please, Sam?
Oh, yeah, hi.
How are you?
Fine, thanks. How are you?
Can we, Johnny is all ears. He's hopefully going to answer as best he can the question you have for him, so please let us have it.
Okay. Hi, Johnny.
Hiya.
Well, I'm a big supporter of you, and so are a lot of other people. And I was wondering, do you actually enjoy the support you get, especially at the races? Would you rather people just left you alone and let you just concentrate on the job, on driving?
No, well, I think the driving side of it, especially when you're at a Grand Prix, because we're always locked away from everybody else, so I can normally concentrate on what I've got to do. I can do what I have to do with the engineers and the team and the sponsors and everything else. And then when that's all finished, and normally, especially how it is at Silverstone, when I have to leave the paddock to get to the car park, it's, as you probably know, very difficult for us to get out because the crowd is absolutely jamming against the gates, and it's very difficult for us to get to the car parks. And normally that's where all the hassle starts. But that is part of it, and I accept that side of it. So all the support that I do get is very appreciative.
Johnny, I must interject. Tom and I, we actually pay people to come and look for our autograph. Don't knock it. It's a very enjoyable pastime, I promise you. Is that okay, Sam? You've got your point. You've spoken to your hero. I'm a bit of a fan of Johnny's too, so I'm in that group. I have to tell you. And for fear those people on the radio haven't or don't remember, Johnny brought us our very first championship in '87. It was a fantastic time. And 10 years have elapsed.
Jordan, that didn't they?
That's absolutely
made
true.
Eddie.
But they were very pleasant times, and maybe we can talk about it later. But times have changed a lot in racing. It's become incredibly professional, and sometimes we don't necessarily get time to enjoy the good parts of as much as we used to. Thanks, Sam. If we can move on, we've got another call. Simon Smith, please. Simon, your question. Sorry, I do believe that we've lost Simon. We've got Darren online. Darren?
Hello.
How are you?
Fine, thank you. Now, when Renault pulled out at the end of 1997, two teams at the top level, Williams and Benetton, will be looking around for other engine suppliers. Now, this is thrown open to everyone there. What would you imagine the supplier they would turn to?
Well, I think, if I may answer that firstly, I think every team in the world has currently got a direct line to Peugeot. And we're not trying to embarrass any present people around this table, but Tom, maybe you could answer that particular question.
Well, I was going to advise them to go to Peugeot, actually.
I thought you might say that. Is that before you or after you, Tom?
I've already been.
Well, I know that, but I just wanted to be discreet for once.
I think, obviously that everyone's going to be looking around for engines, and I think the whole engine supply situation is going to be in turmoil for the next 12 months. But, it's happened in Formula 1 before, and at the end of the day, it'll all shake out, I'm sure.
I mean, really, Renault, to be absolutely honest, they've done an unbelievable job winning all these championships. And yet some of the things that came back to me, they've never really been able to carry the number one in the car the following year, because every time they won a championship, whether it was Schumacher or Prost or Mansell or whoever, they moved on immediately the following year. And perhaps we can ask that question to Patrick later on. Perhaps that might be a nice little one to tease him with. But so if you're listening, Patrick, we're after you. Don't worry, you're not going to get away easy. But it is a shame. I mean, we've all enjoyed Elf also, of course, Maurice. From your side of the fence, is it a major blow? Is it something that we needed that as a manufacturer? Or will people, which is discussed, BMW, Honda, of course, will they come in?
Well, purely from our point of view, it's just another very good story. It's also, but it is sad to see Renault go, because they've done a phenomenal job, really excellent. When you think that they're supplying two top teams, they're giving them equal equipment, and then they finish 1, 2, 3, 4 in the French Grand Prix. You just can't beat that. So I suppose, but nothing lasts forever. They've got to move on. They've got their reasons for it, and new manufacturers are going to come in. That's good for the sport. I'd like to think that maybe it'll help somebody like the small independent people like Brian Hart, who does an excellent job, worked with you, Eddie, in the past, now with Tom. Perhaps it might help him, somebody come along and support him. But I think really we are looking at the big names, and if the big names come in, that's good for business, that's good for the sport as a whole.
Johnny, you've obviously driven with Renault. You know more about them from a driving perspective, having spent last year with them, championship winners. Your obviously idea they're incredibly professional, certainly from the outside. Is that the case?
Yeah, I think, as you said, what they've actually achieved over the years has been absolutely fantastic. And I think now for them, I think they've probably made a decision that they can't better it, and they're probably thinking that maybe they should give it a rest and then come back maybe in 1 or 2 years or whatever. But as Tom says, I think it will all overcome itself by the end of the year. And once everybody knows exactly what's happening with the other manufacturers coming in or who's going to get what engine, then I think it will sort itself out and it won't be such a problem as we got at the moment, because everybody's thinking, what the hell are we going to do? But I think it will iron itself out as it always has done.
Thanks, Johnny, and thank you, Darren. That was an excellent question. Obviously, this is Eddie Jordan on his motor racing night. Please call us on 0345 909 693. We're going to give you a little bit of a clue now, because we're going to have a lead-in to tonight's special guest.
As Damon now comes towards Chateau d'Eau and now comes downhill into the final chicane. He's in that last chicane now. Just the second gear squirt between him and the checkered flag. And there, Damon Hill crosses the start-finish line. The checkered flag greets him. The waving Williams mechanics greet him. Jacques Villeneuve crosses the finish line with a twitch of opposite lock behind him to make it a magnificent 1-2 for Williams Renault. Damon Hill has won the French Grand Prix at last.
Patrick, a very big warm welcome. You're in the hot seat now. We've got you for a couple of minutes, and of course we're going to avail of that opportunity, but we won't give you too hard a time. Well, I hope not anyway. But a big welcome to you. Obviously an unbelievable job that you're doing, not just for Williams and Renault and Elf, but obviously for Damon, who is, if you like, the darling of the crowd, and hopefully will go on to win the World Championship this year. Just firstly, if I may ask you, because we referred to you earlier in this little commentary with regard to the impact of the Renault withdrawal, perhaps your own opinion on that.
Yes, evening, Eddie.
Evening.
Obviously, it's quite a blow. It's quite some time in the future, obviously the end of 97. But we need to do fairly long-term planning these days. And it's certainly a concern. I mean, Frank said to me the other day that the only teams that were contracted with an engine for 1998 were, in effect, obviously Ferrari, McLaren and Stewart. And they are the only people, as far as Frank tells me, with a contract in place for 98. So, as Tom was saying earlier, there'll be some movements going on, but I don't think you'll find us hopping around the back of the Peugeot motorhome anyway.
That gives me some relief, I have to say, but
I'm sure
not hoping. We're going to be very, very good with you, because we're not going to tell anyone. But there is a very big rumour, and my journalist friend here confidently inspires me that you have already signed a piece of paper. Patrick, are you prepared to enlarge on that?
Which piece of paper?
Yeah, the one with that very well-known engine manufacturer on it.
No,
I mean, you
I
can
think
trust us. We're never going to tell anybody. You know us. We're honourable people.
Yet another speculation, Eddie. By the way, talking about the time for the social side of motor racing, I received the invitation from you today for your party on 6:30 on Sunday evening.
You better bring your rock and roll boots, because it's a new agenda, I have to tell you. Every year we've had the winner on that stage. We played Johnny Be Good for Johnny last year, and we had Vacant, or Pretty Vacant, which I'm not sure applies to who. Probably to me at that particular moment, but Damon Hill does a very, very good impression of the Sex Pistols. So I hope everybody joins us, because even last year we did manage to catch the end of the grandstand commentary from the Grand Prix. We've got lots of people here who want to ask you questions, so perhaps we could start with Maurice.
Hello, Patrick.
Evening, Maurice.
Patrick, Damon is obviously the centre of very much attention here, and even if you open the newspaper starting Monday, lots of stories about him. He's going to be the main man. what will your reaction be if during the race and everything's going well and Jacques Villeneuve's actually in front, Damon's behind, they're having a good old tussle and the crowd really want Damon to win? I mean, I know there's no team orders, but will that still apply? Because I know a lot of people in the crowd will probably wish that maybe you could, if need be, restrain Jacques a little bit.
I don't really think they would, Maurice, because I think the British are fairly a pretty sporting lot, and I think the main thing they want to see is a race. And if it happens that Damon comes out on top of that race, fine. But I don't think they'd appreciate it if we tried to impose team orders. And there's been one or two times in the past that there's nothing in the contracts of either driver. And there's been one or two occasions in the past where we've stuck out team orders on the wall and the drivers have gone by and suddenly developed the Nelson blind eye. So I'm not sure that it would work if we did, but I can tell you it won't be happening.
Right. Patrick, I'll just interrupt there if I may. We have a caller who's adamant that he would like to have a quick chat with you. His name is Mark Drury. Perhaps you could take the call. Mark, what's your question, please?
Hello, Eddie. First of all, Patrick, let me say how full of admiration I am for you and Adrian Newey. Consistently fantastic cars, and that's wonderful.
It obviously comes from quite a reasonable-sized group of people in our design office as well.
Yeah. What I wanted to ask you about was the tyre wars. It looks like we're going back to the old days of the tyre wars in Formula One, and I wonder if you think this is a good or a bad thing.
I don't think it will do a lot of harm, and I think the biggest thing is to try and avoid is tyres that become designated qualifiers, and the FIA have said that they brought in certain provisos, or imposing certain provisos, that in effect means that you have to race on the same tyre that you qualify on, and I think that's the most important thing. But otherwise, I don't think it's doing the Indy kart type racing in America that much harm. And there's a number of circuits, Goodyear, we run with tyres which are quite close to the limit anyway, so I don't think it'll do any great harm.
Okay. Mark, is that a good answer for you? Because obviously you're talking to the person who has designed or been part of the design construction that is the envy of everybody in a sport. In fact, I'm not sure whether I should add this comment, but Patrick, you've given me some serious headaches over the last number of years, I promise you, as everyone else knows.
We'll try and keep it up, Eddie.
Don't you worry. I wish you'd go off and work for somebody else or retire or use that boat down there in the South Sea. It's great fishing weather at the moment. Tom, I'm sure Tom here is bursting to ask you a question.
Hello, Patrick.
Probably about touring cars, even, Tom.
Well, we won't. Yes, okay, Tom has his other hat on here at the moment. I'm afraid he's stuck with the Formula One hat.
Yeah, as a team owner who's actually looking at drivers for next year, Patrick, there's a lot been sort of speculated in the media recently that you're not very happy with Villeneuve. Is there any truth in the fact you may be considering to change your driver lineup?
That's very delicate.
We certainly we have a contract with Jacques for certainly at least another year till the end of '97, and we don't intend to break that contract. And I don't know where that speculation came from, but it is not the case anyway.
Okay.
Just to interrupt you there, I'd just like to say my own personal thanks. Looking forward to seeing you at the weekend. I'm sure you'll rock with us anyway, Patrick, come what may. It's very much a part of the Silverstone scene. We're here live, Eddie Jordan's Motor Racing Night. We'll be back shortly. Of course, the news is coming up now. We're on 909-693. Please call us back shortly. A very big warm welcome back to Eddie Jordan's Motor Racing Night. Please call us on 0345 909 693. As you may have already known, we're joined here with Johnny Herbert, Tom Walkinshaw and Maurice Hamilton. And I'd just like to, obviously, particularly with the weekend that's in it here, lads, that the crowd, the atmosphere and the amount of people, and despite the cost of the event here of coming in and watching it, it's a complete sellout. And I'm just wondering, where does it all end?
Well, the big question, Eddie, is who's actually paying for these tickets? Because as we saw at Wimbledon when we had that final, the semi-final, whatever it was, the quarter-final. Sorry, I'm not really up in tennis, and it started at 11 o'clock, and all the seats were empty, and there was a Brit playing his heart out, and it looked like all the corporate bodies were buying those tickets, and their guests weren't turning up. Now, is the same thing happening here? Have we got real enthusiasts who either can't afford to come, or if they can afford it, they can't actually buy tickets because they're being sold in blocks to corporate people. Now, you obviously would understand more about that end of it than I would, Eddie, because of the corporate side of things. Is it getting out of hand?
Well, I don't know. Tom and I will probably see it from a team owner's point of view, that the corporate element is now such a major role that you have obviously a promotional budget, you have a marketing budget, and that's peripheral, if you like, to the actual event, because in many aspects it's the TV that they're after, or that's our opinion anyway. But at the main event where you're racing, particularly British Grand Prix, where it's an absolute sellout one year into another, it's quite clear that there are people who queue and get these tickets and save up because it's not cheap to come here, but yet it's an unbelievable day out. And I think there's a balance of both. I'm not sure. Do you find the same thing, Tom?
Yes, I think so. I don't think it's to be unexpected that Damon's doing so much winning at the moment that the race here is sold out. And I think that the guys at Silverstone are doing a superb job in promoting it and putting on really good facilities, so everyone wants to be here. So if it was getting priced out the marketplace, then the place would be empty. If it's booked out, then they must be doing something right.
Johnny, obviously this particular race, British Grand Prix, it's where we all started from, if you like, one way or another. And it's been a great, if you like, source of boosting, and in many aspects Silverstone helped us to arrive at an international level. Do you find that the crowd affect you, make you go quicker, or it's outside the level now?
No, I think that was one with Nigel Mansell. It seemed to find a second a lap through doing it. But for me, I think you've got to have that second a lap at every single Grand Prix. I don't think it makes any difference as far as speed at your home Grand Prix, but I think it just gives you that will that you want to do well in front of your fans. You want to try and do everything probably more consistently as quick as you can, and I think it's just that extra buzz that it gives all the British drivers a bit more push in during that weekend. And I think the way they are during the weekend with the flags all the way around the circuit, like from last year, you always see them waving the flags because they wave them normally, because the past couple of years we've had some British wins, so it's always been British flags waving like video.
It's a great feeling. I'm sure there's nothing quite like it.
No, it's a great feeling, but to see that, I think for all the British drivers, even when Damon won it, when I won it last year, even the guys behind us, the British drivers, still get it as well. So it's still a good feeling.
Well, we have a call on the line here, Brian Graves, who really actually has a very important and very topical, because it's exactly the thing about pricing and the structure of pricing in Grand Prix racing. Brian.
Hello, Eddie.
Good evening.
Good evening.
What's your question, please?
Yeah, you're coming for a bit quiet to me, but, well, first of all, can I say well done to Johnny Herbert for last year?
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, £65 for the British Grand Prix. The first time I went was 1977 when James Hunt won. It was, I think, £7.50 to get in. And I stopped going early 80s, and when the price really basically skyrocketed. We went up to Brands Hatch yesterday. Williams were testing. It was free. Even the biggest event at Silverstone, which the second biggest event rather, the ITC, which was £20. How do they justify £65? All right, the tickets are sold out.
Sure.
But
well, really, Brian, what we're on about here is that you have a little bit, somewhat grief, if you like, that you think it's overpriced, and really we've just discussed it here. Do people feel that it's unfair? Because we all know it starts at 6:30 in the morning. It goes on, as we know, till 7 o'clock at night. And if you were to break it down on an hourly rate, which obviously statistics can make you do anything these days, but I'd have to say, for value for entertainment, whether it be football, tennis, and it's not for me to get involved in any other slagging match with any other sport, because each of us all have to stand up on our own feet. And it's really clear to us, Silverstone, and I have to tell you this, Brian, that it is the cheapest Grand Prix that we attend. I don't believe there is another Grand Prix anywhere in the world for a ticket under £100. But that doesn't justify if it's excessive. And in my opinion, I don't believe it is excessive. I do realise it's a big cost, but then it is a major, major event, and it's a showpiece. It's not just a Grand Prix for a couple of hours. As we've already discussed, Tom has a couple of other teams here, and he's very much part of that. So there is entertainment non-stop from 7 in the morning till 7 in the evening.
I would agree, Eddie. Good evening, Brian. I think that the thing that you have to bear in mind is, I agree with you entirely. It is a lot of money, and particularly if the two of you are going and you're trying to bring a family. I mean, it's a massive shell out, isn't it? But when you go to some of the Grand Prix abroad, you'll find that the only thing you have actually on the Sunday is the Grand Prix. They don't even have any support races. It's unbelievable, and the crowd have to sit. If they want to claim a seat, they have to sit in the baking sun all day long. They get the warm-up in the morning, they get an hour and a half of Grand Prix in the afternoon, and that is it. The thing that Silverstone do so well, and in fact the British Grand Prix has always done so well, is provide extra entertainment, and Silverstone really have got that off to a fine art. So yes, I agree, Brian, it's a heck of a lot of money, but it is a superb day's entertainment.
Brian, to be quite honest, I hope that's a good cross-section of the feeling here, because obviously motor racing has this tendency to feel that it's very aloof, which absolutely is not the right impression whatsoever, but it does cost quite a lot of money. The advancement of technology, and of course that technology feeding back into industry, particularly in the UK and Britain, is very significant. So we are putting on a show here along with a lot of other people, a lot of other teams, and I have to say that whilst I do understand £65 is a lot of money, I do believe that it's fair value, and you could not possibly go home without being feeling fairly well done by. Yeah. Anyway, thanks for that. Okay. On another line, we have Bruce Smith, who actually has been hanging on for a bit of a while, so apologies for that. Bruce, perhaps you could let us know what you'd like to hear.
Yeah, no problem, Eddie, and perhaps you might actually like to come back onto this question, which in the first place I'd like to put to Johnny Herbert. Johnny, you've driven now for two big, if you like, teams recently. Benetton, who you had a success not just at Silverstone, let's not forget the Italian Grand Prix as well, but also more recently for Sauber. Do you think that the ultimate success of a team does solely come from the amount of money available to it, and therefore obviously the amount of personnel and the quality of personnel it can have, or is it something less quantifiable than that? And do you foresee the day perhaps when the likes of Sauber will actually win a Grand Prix?
Well, I think, the only way you have to look at it probably is a bit like Eddie when he first got involved. He came in with quite a small budget at the time, but he actually got a very good package in his first year, got the results, and that actually helped him for the following couple of years probably actually to get a recognised team up and running. But the budgets, yes, are very important, because I think the bigger the budget, the more testing, the more mileage that is done with the cars, the much more mileage is going to come out of it, that the car is going to produce the results at the end of the day. For someone like Sauber, or even Eddie to a certain point where he's still got to jump up a little bit, it's still down to a little bit of money as well, because you've got to put it in the right areas, you've got to have the right team, you've got to have the right package. Even if you've got all the money in the world but the package is wrong, a little bit like with McLaren at the moment, they're not going to achieve the goals, but you've got to get everything right to make it right. Yes, it does cost money, but it's putting it in the right areas to actually achieve it.
So, I mean, obviously the management side of it plays a fairly important part as well, off of the track.
Yeah, sure, because you've got to get the right people in the right areas, even at home at base, because obviously when we're away, we're just here with a race team and a car, but it's all the designers, all the design team, all the workers who actually build the things in the first place. They're back home. And it's really down to them in a way, especially from the basics of the car when it first is made, that they've got to try and produce a good car. And again, that's down to a little bit of budget, because they've got to have it to actually get the best things and find the best things. Wind tunnel work is very, very expensive.
Eddie, do you think you're at a stage where you're close to winning a Grand Prix now?
Well, Bruce, I was just going to say in reply, and Johnny is perhaps very ideally situated to know the situation. Last year, of course, he was with Benetton, which had a big budget, and Sauber probably not quite as big. But I must also emphasize that one of the age-old excuses is you don't have enough money, and you have to also be clear that an average or a bad team is not going to become great overnight because of a budget. So I think there is a lot of innuendo that if you had this money you could conquer the world, and there are obviously limits. What we must accept is that Williams does not have the best budget in Formula 1, and they're doing a most outstanding job, so we have to take it all in balance and to know clearly what the position is. But Bruce, that was a very good point. We were part of it, and I would just say thank you for that. Obviously, as you know, there's a very major athletics meeting taking place in Nice. I'd like to return there now if possible, and we've got John Rawlings to describe what's happening.
That's the question. You thought you were going to win a Grand Prix?
Sorry? Okay,
Mr. Mullins.
apologies for that. I think we're going to come on now and we just finish off exactly what Tom wanted to mention, something about the financial side, because he's probably seen it on every side. We know you've got pots of dough, Tom, but you're just hiding it all away. And you've been with Benetton, you've been with Ligier, and you're now with... Well, I'm confused, but anyway, tell us who you're with.
I wanted to hear you answering the man's question of when you thought
But you
you
know
were
I
going to win
wouldn't
a Grand Prix.
Come on, tell us the story, Tom.
We're sitting here waiting. Not going to answer that.
You know me, Tom, I'm the greatest evader of all time. But anyway, I'm decided you're going to tell us.
I don't know when you're going to win a Grand Prix, Eddie. But as far as the budget's concerned, I think that what's been said before is right. I think most of it goes down to management and the application of the money that's available. And, I think that Ferrari have got the biggest budget probably by a long way. Several other people have substantial budgets, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they win Grand Prix. And I think it's the quality of the management, as Williams demonstrate, that weekend in, weekend out makes them competitive.
Well, the budget, as I might say and repeat myself perhaps for a second, but as you rightly say, the management is the key part. And of course, a driver doesn't necessarily see that. He wants to see the first question that the driver comes to see us. We'll obviously ask that about what is the budget and what are you going to do about it. But Tom, while you're on the old subject there, tell us your drivers for next year. You said who did you say they were, Tom?
I said I didn't know. That's why I was asking Patrick. You know that.
Well, Patrick has all the cards up his sleeve. We know that. But I thought you were on the inside track there. You'd know what's going down.
We could have split them on there and just sort of get a little bit of inside information.
Okay, folks. The banter here is probably getting a little excessive, so please forgive us if you think that we're not paying enough attention. Obviously, another caller on the line. We've just had a Zoe in the past, who is a daughter of mine, and we now have Michelle, who is another daughter I have, but not the same one. Michelle Gardner, could we have your question, please?
Hi, Mr. Jordan. It's just to ask. Damon Hill seems to be running away with everything this year. Do you think it's likely that Mr. Schumacher, almighty as he is, can catch up with Damon Hill, and if not, where is the likely challenge going to come from?
I think with an accent like that, it's probably more appropriate that the TW here answers that question. He wants to know, are you from the east side or the west side of the
west side?
The west side.
The west side.
Anyway, Damon Hill, just from my side anyway, I think it's fitting that Damon Hill wins the championship this year. It's been outlined earlier in the programme as to what the attributes of Michael Schumacher are. I think that Damon has been incredibly graceful in defeat in the past. He took it like a champion on the chin. And I think it's his day. I don't believe there's very many people who would dispute that. People will always talk about various degrees of talent, and I think there is no question of that particular aspect here. Damon has made himself, it's invariable that the best driver winds up in the best car. That's a fact of life in Grand Prix racing. Some people find that hard to understand or to believe that it happens, but generally it's a practice. And I really do believe it's Damon's year, and I think good luck to him. He's been around a while. He started very late in his career. People don't quite understand that. He shied away from Grand Prix racing or racing in general. He was in motorcycle racing. And if you actually analyse the number of years he's been racing cars, it's probably, in duration term, shorter than the rest of the current drivers. So good luck to Damon. I hope he pulls it off from me. Tom, you've got a similar accent, so why can't we have a reply from you?
Well, to answer the question, I think obviously Michael's the one that's most capable of giving me a run for his money. And next up to that, you'd have to see his teammate Villeneuve is the only other one you see there really mounting a challenge. So I think though at this point in the season, as long as Damon doesn't do something disastrously wrong, then he's going to win the championship.
Journalists would be happy with that, Maurice?
Yeah, I would agree. Michael Schumacher, I think we were led a little bit astray by Schumacher's incredible win in Spain, but that was partly a result of conditions which allowed him to show just how good he is with his reflexes and so on, but also Ferrari guessed right. They guessed that the rain was going to stay, and it did, whereas Williams and Damon Hill went the wrong way completely. So that also tended to make you think that Ferrari were on a comeback, but of course it was a sort of exceptional circumstances. But having said that, I agree with Tom. It is Michael Schumacher we have to look to provide the biggest challenge, I think, to Damon. Jacques Villeneuve is just too early at this stage. It's his first season. Maybe next year, yes, but not at this moment. And perhaps you might say that with, I think it's now 6 races to go, something like that, 6 or 7 races to go, perhaps the biggest enemy Damon Hill is going to have is himself. And that is just coping with the pressure of leading the championship and just dealing with that, because he's been there, he's been close before. It's a psychological thing, will he let it fall this time? I don't think he will, but that possibly could be the biggest problem he's got.
Johnny, I do realise that it's always difficult, particularly to discuss or to have close feelings with regard to a competitor and a direct competitor. The fact that you're British on Sunday, both British, will actually mean nothing, because he's yet another one on the grid that you've got to beat. But do you think it's his day? Do you think it's he's put himself in this position to win, or your general feelings about Damon's position?
Well, his position is very clean cut. He's in a very good car, and he's done the job so far this year, and he's got to keep on doing it because the pressure's not off. He hasn't won the championship. Michael's there, but he's probably a bit too far away. And the Ferrari's still not yet reliable enough. And Jack is in the same situation, that he's new. He has the car capable of doing it, but I think his experience is not helping him. So Damon really has a free ride home, and as long as Tom says, he doesn't make any very bad errors and doesn't finish, then I think he's won it.
Good. Michelle, I hope you're a Damon fan, because then you've heard everything that you wanted to have heard. But that was very kind. It's a good question. And I hope you enjoy Damon winning at the Grand Prix this weekend, should that be the case. Thank you. Simon Smith. Simon, you've been hanging on for a long time, so please give us your question.
Yes, good evening, gentlemen, and good luck to you all for the weekend. My question is really on the point scoring system for the Grand Prix, and I wondered if it could be improved if points were awarded for the first 6 in qualifying, and also possibly for the fastest lap achieved during a race. Therefore, if you don't finish the race, your efforts in at least qualifying won't have all completely been lost. So you might have a bit of sympathy for Mr. Schumacher in that respect.
Oh, we've got a lot of Schumacher fans out here. I'm not sure
no,
why he should be
I'm
on
a Schumacher fan, but
it sounds like it. Don't fool us.
Well, yeah.
Okay, Simon. Anyway, I'll pass it to the boys here, and we'll see what the general consensus is. Johnny, what do you think? We'll give you.
Well, I think again, qualifying is an important part of the weekend. So maybe some points, as you say, towards the points on the Sunday as well could be a very good thing. But obviously, you've got to be a little bit careful that with Michael's situation, where he might qualify, say, on pole position every time, and Damon, say, qualified 6th, which he's not doing at all. So I'm talking a lot of rubbish, but it doesn't matter. And then in the weekend, that winning the race, which is the most important part of the weekend. You got the maximum points, and then you didn't score because you didn't finish, but you got the qualifying ones. It just makes it a bit of a mismatch at the moment. So
it's alien to the way we've been brought up anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
And maybe for us, to be fair, Simon, it's probably difficult. I would have thought, and we'll obviously open it to Tom and to Maurice, but it's against everything that we know or have been brought up to understand in racing, and perhaps it's a younger person or a new person coming in may absolutely subscribe to your train of thought. But anyway, Tom, what do you think about that?
I think we obviously review things like point scoring quite frequently, but I think
we never do anything about it, Tom.
No, I think that's right also. I think the system we have is the fairest one. When you actually take everything into consideration, I think the system we have is the fairest one. The driver who really tries hard in practice is rewarded with a better grid position, which automatically gives him a better chance of scoring higher points in the race. So I think that the way we have it's the way it should be.
I would agree, except that I don't think awarding points for qualifying is the answer, because it would actually make Damon Hill's lead even greater, because I think I'm right in saying in the races we've had so far, he hasn't been off the front of the grid, so therefore he would have accumulated even more points. But I do think that there is an argument to be put for giving just 1 point perhaps for fastest lap for a driver who's had a problem and he wants to come away with something from the afternoon, and he's really given it everything. And it also perhaps is something that the spectators could be aware of and see the guy, so that he's coming through the field, he's not going to get any points, he's not going to get into the first 6, but you know he's going to go for that 1 point, and you see him having a go at giving the fastest lap. Perhaps there's an argument for that, but generally I agree.
I'd have to disagree with you, Maurice, for my own sake. I'd have to say I think that's bringing gimmickry into it, and it is a gimmick because we personally have had fastest laps, and it's happened because you're uncompetitive in the race, or you're not up at the front. You come in, you put a new set of tyres on it, and there's little or no fuel in it, and you absolutely gone bonsai. And I don't feel that a point of a major championship in a world particularly like what we do in a World Championship, should be attributed to somebody who's able to do it by either fortune or otherwise. I think it has to be earned, and the only people able to earn, we've always gone through it year in, year out, the person who gets past the post first is the winner. There cannot be any other way.
Well, I think, all right, I accept what you say, but I think just 1 point perhaps for the fastest lap, because, you know, people are stealing a point for 6th place by struggling home when everybody else has dropped out. You could put that argument into it as well. So I think 1 point for fastest lap, there is a case to be argued there. I agree that it's not the be-all, end-all, because I think the best thing that's been done recently is the move from 9 points to 10 points for a win. You must reward the winner, and that's done. And I think the way the championships worked out in the past few years has been absolutely right.
I'd agree with that. Simon, I hope that answers you.
Seemed pretty unanimous anyway.
Yeah, unanimous for once anyway. Simon, thank you. I'm just going to squeeze in John Carter. We're going to have to go to the news quite soon, but John, please, your question.
Yes, thank you, Eddie. I'd really like to talk about refuelling. I mean, refuelling was introduced to make Grand Prix motor racing more entertaining, and I'd like to know your opinion, or Tom's, whether you think Grand Prix racing is better off with refuelling, and if it's likely to be discontinued, what would affect that change?
I think that everyone in the sport thinks that long term we should do away with refuelling. It was brought in for various reasons. One of them, was obviously to improve the show. But I think that our racing in Formula 1 is quite different from IndyCar racing, and it is quite dangerous with the fuels we use. So I think long term it would be a good thing if we did away with refuelling.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Anyone else on the refuelling side?
No, well, just from a driver's point of view, we take a lot of risks in the first place, and just having that added extra risk that's there, and sometimes it can lose you a race just because of a silly valve problem or whatever.
Well,
so
I think that's a very valid point. Someone mentioned
John.
earlier. Okay, thanks.
Thanks
Good luck
very
on
much.
Sunday.
Welcome back to Live at Silverstone to Eddie Jordan's Motor Racing Night. Folks, I have to tell you out there, I'm having a lot of stick here. You've never heard such chip, and I'm going to give them a lot of flack when I leave this show. But anyway, this is my attempt at being a broadcaster. And there's only one broadcaster we all know here, who's John Watson, who's our great inspiration from Ireland. And quite honestly, Maurice, while we're talking about Ireland, Irish racing, and of course a huge gathering of Irish people will arrive here for the race this weekend, we all have fantastic memories about Silverstone because it was the one race we could possibly dare to afford to come to. Did you find that yourself when you started?
Oh, yes. I mean, it was the main event for me, living in Northern Ireland and being a motor racing fan. To go to the British Grand Prix was the highlight of your year. And the first time I came here in 1967, I camped across the road in a field. In fact, Eddie, actually, where your factory's built now is where I camped.
Probably was more comfortable to live in the... We'll send you the bill, don't worry. We're never shy at sending out invoices.
I thought you might. But that was my first experience here, and I've been to every British Grand Prix at Silverstone since, either as an enthusiast sitting up in the grandstand or in a working capacity. So it just means so much to me, and I imagine it means still a great deal, particularly to the Irish supporters, because it is the nearest Grand Prix to them, and you just have a lot of fun doing it. We used to come over in a Volkswagen, and one year when it was so wet we couldn't put the tent up, so four of us stepped in the Volkswagen Beetle. But after we'd had a pretty good night down in the Saracen's Head, I have to say, it made the going a bit easier.
Well, I think we're all fairly synonymous to having a good time, and Silverstone was sort of, for me anyway, a lot of racing, or a lot of the calendar revolved around planning everything around the Silverstone Grand Prix. I suppose in the past I can own up to it that I was one of the people with the biggest snips in town. They were things that opened the barbed wire, not to get confused with anything else, folks. This is a family program, I should remind everyone of that. But all in all, it was a special day. In fact, I have such a vivid memory. I think 73. Maurice, you're the historian here. You might recall if I'm accurate in this. But we came here. It was a huge accident, and I remember David Kennedy and Derek Daly, myself, and a few others were standing up in a hoarding at the very end here at Cops Corner, and this huge accident. And we had perhaps the best view in town, and I think we didn't pay a penny. Of course, that security is all tightened up now, but I mean, these are such fond memories. And, the commitment to come here, it didn't matter how you got to Silverstone or the Grand Prix. And I just will bring up the point that you mentioned, that you thought it was all corporate people. I have to say, when you leave the the pits or the paddock, which of course has the protection nowadays, and you try and head for the pub or the different bars outside of Silverstone or in Silverstone, then you realise the support at ground level. And I will disagree with you. I think there is a huge element of hospitality at a corporate level, but the grassroots are here. They are supporting motor racing, and that's not just evidenced in terms of people at the Grand Prix, but the huge increase of TV viewers throughout the last number of years throughout the world is quite staggering. The sport is gone from strength to strength, and I think I'd have to say that some of that is without question down to Bernie Ecclestone, who has been our master and our teacher over the years. So Tom, you tell me, how many of the Scots come down here?
Oh, it's obviously very important for racing fans of Scotland as well, and there will be lots down here over the weekend supporting David Coulthard, I'm sure. The race here is obviously the focal point for everyone in motorsport for the whole season, so you've got to try and get here if you possibly can.
Juliet, on the line. Juliet is going to tell us it's her first Grand Prix. Juliet, are you looking forward to it?
I am. I'm very, very excited. Yes, I got tickets for my birthday from my husband.
Please don't tell us where you got the tickets. Are you leaving your husband at home, Johnny wants to know?
No, he's coming with me.
Oh, that's a shame. But anyway, never mind. You can stay in the grandstand, so. Okay. What question would you like to?
Well, I'd just like to ask, as it is my first Grand Prix, and I am a Grand Prix virgin, if the panel's got any tips, of how to get the most out of my day, really.
I think that could actually lead into all sorts of questions. So, Tom, I think you're probably most appropriate in this particular answer.
Well, I think if you're going to come here, it's your very first time, you must get in really early and try and get a good vantage point and start to see the warm-up in the morning, maybe move around from different corners, which you'll still probably be able to do first thing in the morning, and then choose the best vantage point you possibly can to see the race from.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. I think bring a towel along. I think that definitely helps. That seems to work everywhere else. So.
Considering what I'd be like.
I think one thing you should do, Juliet, is it will be a bit confusing with the pit stops and so on to try and understand who's leading and what's going on. And if you're not near a loudspeaker, bring a portable radio with you and tune into Radio 5 Live.
Yes, I will be. Yeah.
That helps me. So.
Julia, thanks. I hope that's it. I think you'll have a great day. I think, quite honestly, I shall never, ever forget the first time I was at a Grand Prix. It blew my mind away, I have to say. It's the most exciting, unbelievable event that I can ever say. But I'm obviously a fanatic, and I suppose that helped. But hearing from what you're saying, it obviously applies to you as well.
Yeah.
Do get here early. It is absolutely vital. You'll say to yourself, oh, well, don't worry, I'll get there. But I promise you, you need to be at the track at about 7 o'clock to fulfill the day to its fullest. And it's a wonderful experience. I actually wish I was having my first ever Grand Prix again, because it's so exciting and so thrilling that you'll talk about it for years.
Did your husband not include helicopter tickets in that, Juliet?
No, he didn't.
Oh, what an old meanie. If you came in with Herbert and the rest of the boys, you'd be on the chopper, don't you worry. Julia, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you indeed.
Bye-bye.
Obviously now is the time that we're going to introduce our second guest. He's a man, of course, that we all know very well, and whoever it is, we're going to ask you some searching questions, so please listen in for this.
Coulthard takes a nice, easy, smooth line, and Schumacher not even in his mirrors, about 7 seconds behind. Coulthard stroking to the finish now as he goes through the S's. He just has one corner left between him and this victory that he has longed for so long. He was second in this race last year to Damon Hill, but today he's been the team leader on the track, and here he comes. David Coulthard wins the first Grand Prix victory of his career.
David Coulthard. David Coulthard is well known for one of the very few drivers who's never driven for Jordan. Perhaps, David, that's probably one of your lucky escapes, but we're not going to let you escape tonight because we're going to give you a hard time. We want to know, how do the other half live? What is it like living in Monaco? Are your feet in the water and the sand? Are you in stars and bars drinking some nice cocktail? Tell us, Dave. We're all ears.
Well, it's a combination of all of those things, and I'm very disappointed that Johnny's not here in Monaco, because I went to the
He's
pub
here
and there was
working.
no one
He
to
needs
drink
the
with.
money. BBC paid fortunes, didn't you know?
No, a combination of everything. And Eddie, I think I've come close a couple of times to driving for you, but you've always managed to tear the contract up before I got pen to paper.
No, we don't like to pay money. You should know that by now. You're driving for that strange person in red and white down there near Woking, who really should be here to take the flak from the rest of us. But anyway, well done, David. You are going to say, before I interrupted you, please continue.
Well, yeah.
It's difficult, isn't it?
I know. No, it's a combination of everything down here, isn't it? You know, I had a small spell on the beach this afternoon to make sure I've got a good plan for the party on Sunday night after the race.
But do you intend to win? You know we only have winners on that stage. Johnny was there, weren't you, Johnny?
I was there.
Yeah, and Damon was there.
David
Can you win
was
this
there.
weekend, David?
Yeah, well, actually, I think that I did Johnny a wee favour last year, so I'm hoping he might do me a similar favour this year and maybe slow Damon down.
Favours I've found in this business are never reciprocal. Please believe me.
Well, see, that's the Scottish, you see. We believe these things.
Yeah, well, we're going to get on the old. We're going to get the old haggis on here. Come on, Tom, tell us the story.
Which story is that?
You're going to ask him. I mean, how much does he cost? When is he going to start driving for you? And has he got all the tapes from the McLaren team? Come on, the usual things that you were saying before we started.
I wrote to him about that last week.
I hope you're listening, Ron, because your ears should be red because we're talking about you. Don't worry. Go ahead, Tom.
Hello, David. How are you?
Not too bad.
It's difficult to word in edgeways with Eddie, isn't it?
Well, it is. I tell you, this is a unique type of interview in a way, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. It's all one way.
It's all one-sided.
So, what do you think your chances are for the weekend in that old McLaren then?
Well, I'm fairly optimistic that we should be up there qualifying in the top 6 and challenging for points, but whether an outright victory is on the cards or not, I think probably a little bit overly optimistic at the moment. Certainly Mika's been going quite well in the last few tests, so he's probably going there thinking he can win it. And of course you always go there thinking you can win or hoping you can win, but we'll find out, I guess, on Saturday how close we are in qualifying.
Good. Anyway, on behalf of Scotland, I wish you good luck and I hope you can do it.
Thank you very much.
We object to all of that, David, I have to tell you. Us boys here from Ireland, Maurice and myself, we're rooting for... If we can't win it, we want Irvine to win it. Is that right, Maurice?
Well, I mean, no, I'm supposed to be absolutely apolitical
That's
here.
Nonsense.
Hello, David, how are you?
Not too bad.
David, I heard a story, and I'm sure it's not true, that after the Brazilian Grand Prix, you let your hair down a wee bit. And I was wondering if you'd be prepared to do the same thing if you win here at... on Sunday, particularly at Eddie's show, because you were up on the stage last year, if I'm right in thinking.
He was shaking his maracas around, weren't you, David?
That's right. I've been practicing for this year, though, so I reckon I'm going to be able to play a
But are we going to play
instrument.
something different than Johnny Be Good?
I think that's a good song.
I think it's a good song too. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, what would David's theme song be? What would your theme song be if you were up there and you'd won the race, David? What would you? Because Martin Brundle has made this bet, and I can't believe he's made it, that he's going to strip off and sing Danny Boy. You haven't made any suggestion like that, have you?
Well, I think he's going to join the Gallaglass Cayley band.
Speak?
Oh, sorry.
I think I'd probably do a Highland Fling or something if I was to win the race. But I don't know if I'd strip off, because I wouldn't like all the other men there to feel inadequate.
This is a family show, David. I ought to remind you. It's 10:30 there, or getting on for it, and you ought to be in your bed by now, because the big boss... RD will be wondering on why you're not there already. But Johnny'd like to have a word with you.
How are you doing?
Not too bad, Johnny. I've got one lined up on the bar for you. I'm really disappointed.
That was my next question. You're ruining everything for me so far. I bet you're still in there, aren't you?
Well, I'm just going back, actually. I just popped home just to have a natter with you, and then I'll pop back there.
Yeah, that's a good way. That's for you. So when are you coming over?
I'm coming tomorrow. I've got a flight in the morning, so I should be at Silverstone for about 12.
You wouldn't change that ticket for one on Sunday morning by any chance, David? Give us a chance to qualify you, maybe.
Yeah, well, that's actually, we're having a bit of an ongoing battle, aren't we? You know, McLaren and Jordan.
We won't talk about things like that. One never knows who's listening on this programme. It's reputed to be popular. And I may add, just at this venture, that our producer, I think he's not one of us at all, because he's telling us that he's never in his entire life of Radio 5 Live had so many calls about any one programme. Well, I'm not sure why or what they're for, but perhaps to get us off this bloody station. But anyway, David, you've been good fun to come with us. We understand that the pressures of megastars down there in Monaco and all the attractions that there are to come and talk to us mere mortals, we're very impressed, and we wish you well. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Are you coming up and chat with me, David?
I'll come and see you, Johnny.
He hasn't let me get anything edgeways yet, has he?
I'll come and see the
it's
usual
his show
thing.
next week.
You're okay.
Thanks, David. It's a great pleasure. Super to have you on the show, and we've enjoyed talking to you. one of the best young professionals here in Britain coming through, David Coulthard. And with that, I'd like to turn over and please take a call from Andrew Priest. Andrew, have we got your call, please?
Hi, good evening to you. Best of luck to all the British on Sunday anyway.
Does that include the Irish?
That includes the Irish,
Absolutely.
yeah. And
We're
also,
the adopted
Eddie,
brethren tonight, then.
That's right. Also, Eddie, I was another one with the snips as well, years gone by.
I bet my snips were bigger than yours, Andrew.
Quite possibly. Touching on what another caller said just before the news, and Tom answered about the refuelling, how does Johnny feel about the tactics as opposed to just having a flag-to-flag race without pit stops?
Well,
and also the other point about braking distances, how would the panel feel about banning carbon fibre disc brakes to make out braking a bit more, bit better?
Well, I'm glad you asked me first, because I don't think I would have got anything in me. He would have been off, wouldn't he, I think? Anyway, so I'm going to be a long time. I'm going to do it, yeah, I know. Well, I think the refuelling side, as far as strategy and everything else, I think it makes it sometimes interesting, but a lot of the time I think it makes it quite difficult. I think when we didn't have refuelling from a driver's point of view, it was always very interesting because we had to be very, probably even more careful than what we are now, because now it's just a sprint race, where before, because it was just full-blown all the way through, maybe just a tyre stop, which was normally not very often because you lost too much time. You had to set the car up and drive the car in a much different way. So I think maybe you'd probably see a lot more later races coming on, because people would probably be holding back, like Prost used to be. He used to be used to wait and save his tyres a little bit, and then he used to push right at the end. So from that point of view, I think it could make it quite interesting from that point of view. Your second question with the brakes, I don't think it would make actually any difference at all, because although we'd probably make the braking distance bigger, you've still got to stop and try and pass somebody anyway. Even with the shorter braking distances we got now, you've relatively got the same as if you made it another 200 metres long, because you've still got to be able to stop the car. So I don't think it's really going to make a difference. The only thing I would say is a good thing with having them is I think it makes it much more difficult to drive them, and I think that's what we've got to make Formula 1 as difficult as possible, because I think that's when you get the best drivers.
Tom, I think from a technical point of view, I have certainly opinions about the brakes. This came up at several meetings about steel brakes versus carbon brakes, and I'm very clear in my mind that carbon outshines everything else. Okay, a particular spec brake may be the way to go, but could you see yourself going back to steel brakes?
No, I agree with Johnny. I don't think it would make any difference at all to overtaking, and so therefore if it doesn't make any difference, there's no point in changing. Carbon's much safer, they're much more reliable, and I think it would be a retrograde step to go back.
Maurice?
When
yes,
said about the refuelling being banned, when's that likely to be from?
Oh, I didn't say it'd be banned. I just said I think that everyone in the formula would be happy to see refuelling done away with.
Yeah.
It can't be done away with at the moment for, I think, the next couple of years anyway. But I think we'd all like to see the back of it.
Thank you very much.
Well, as these guys around the table will tell you, I'm not a technical man, but I have been led to understand that if changing carbon fibre brakes is not the answer, but what I think they ought to do is somehow reduce the downforce so that the braking distance is longer. We've got to somehow make that braking distance a lot longer so that there is a better chance for overtaking.
Andrew, thank you, and very much appreciate the call, the question, obviously a technical one, and that was very, very interesting. I'd just like to turn over to another Andrew Mansbridge. Andrew.
Hello, yeah, good evening, Eddie.
Good evening.
First of all, I'd like to wish good luck to the 5 British drivers on Sunday, and then I'd like to fire a question at Tom, actually. And I'd like to know...
We'd like to fire something else at Tom. Anyway, leave that to us. And so would half the grid, but nevertheless.
Having followed Arrows for a few years, I'd like to know what sort of timescale...
We all feel very sorry for you, but anyway, don't worry, Andrew.
What sort of timescale he sort of set for them joining the Big 4 at the front of the grid?
Can you not say Big 5, please?
Oh, there's you, of course, as well, yeah.
We'll have to do something better to get away from Jordan, won't we? I think that if we can get a decent engine deal tied up for next year, then I think it's possible for Arrows to win a race or two next year. But I think it's solely dependent on us getting a good engine deal tied up early so we can get a good car designed, and then we'll be competitive. I don't think we win a championship next year, obviously, but I think it's quite possible to win a couple of races, which would be the first races Arrows ever won, I think.
It would, yeah.
Tom, you're a bit of an optimist. You're even a bigger optimist than I am. But anyway, we pass on to Maurice. Maurice, where are you coming from on this?
Well, on the Arrow situation, well, I think Tom taking over the team is the best thing that possibly happened to them, because I don't think I'm being unfair by saying that they've become the most professional team at finishing 7th, because they were always there but never really close enough, and they got into a rut, and they needed somebody like T. Walkinshaw here to come in and give them a proverbial kick up the you-know-what. So it is the best thing that's happened to them, and I think we're all waiting to see them raise their game.
Obviously, Johnny, I mean, you've driven for Tom in the past. I don't think we need to go into that too deeply, but could you see yourself going back to drive for Arrows?
I don't know, Tom.
There's a question. A deal made in heaven.
Andrew, do you see what you started here? You're supposed to be Arrow's #1 fan.
I actually am on Johnny's side. I don't think he should go there in the first place. If I was his manager, I know what I would do. Actually, Andrew, if you could just... I may just ask the question because we're talking about that.
He's
because
off again,
Johnny went to Indy race recently. Come on, Johnny, it's well reported. Is it something you're looking at, or is it something that has an interest to you?
No, it's got an interest to me, but not at this point and stage of my career. I've always looked at it, and I've always wanted to do it since I was a young lad. I think Le Mans, Formula 1 and the Indianapolis 500 were the races I wanted to do. But I want to stay in Formula 1. My heart's in it. I want to do a very good job. I know I can do better than what I've shown so far if I can get in the right situation. And IndyCars, I think later on, now it is Formula 1, so that's what I'm pushing for.
Right. If you want to drive a slower car, you can go and drive for Jordan.
Tom, I knew you'd eventually come up with some answer to that. Gentlemen, thank you, but we have one final caller. That's James. James, your question, please.
Good evening. Yes, I'm a very keen gambler on Formula 1 racing, and I was just wondering what your panel could give me if your panel could give me their thoughts for the race for Silverstone. I've picked out a few good bets. I fancy Villeneuve at 5-1, Hacken at 40s, Coulthard at 50s, Lacey at 8-1, Johnny Herbert 200-1.
Do I go for that? I think.
200-1. Yeah,
but you're only 25s, yes, last year.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Well, I can't understand more.
So, James, what's your own fancy? What do you think?
I think with the prices, I mean, it's going to be a very good race for Williams. Damon Hill's 4-6 on, which isn't a good bet, but Villeneuve 5-1.
Can I just ask the question, James? Have you just arrived direct from Cheltenham or Ascot? Because I have to remind you that this is a sport. The sport of kings is somewhere else. But anyway, of course there are betting shops at the Grand Prix, but actually it's not a sport particularly renowned for its betting. I mean, Johnny, have you ever had a bet on yourself?
No, and I made a big mistake last year, and I know I should have done, but there you go. But no, I've never done it.
James, what's the price on Schumacher? Do you know?
3-1.
3-1. Well, I would have said he's a good bet, because I would have thought that the odds might have opened out a little bit on him because of his bad luck recently and so on, and you can never ever discount him.
Yeah, they haven't opened up that much. He was 5-2 for the last race. Not a good bet, I wouldn't think.
No, all right. No, well, you know more about these things. I'll just keep writing about it.
I was a bit disappointed. Johnny last year told his friends to back him at 25. And if he would have shopped around, he could have got 40.
Oh, yeah, someone did. Don't worry.
If it had been on the programme last year,
anything to do with the gambling instinct?
Could be.
Yeah, good. Where are you from, James?
I'm from Belfast.
Good boy. That's Irvine country, I have to remind you.
Indeed.
I'm not sure. What price is Irvine these days?
Irvine's 100-1.
I think you keep your money in your pocket. Keep it dry. We all love him to death, but I don't want to see you lose your shirt. Tom, who's your money on?
I think obviously Hill. I think Damon should do the job if nothing goes wrong.
I think that's probably the thing, and I mean, if you can get a reasonable... I mean, I have no idea really what way these things work, but perhaps a forecast would be maybe marginally better for you. And I'm not sure if they work the same way where you can alternate them one against the other. But a Villeneuve, I mean, a 1-2 from Williams is probably going to be a tiny price, but it probably is the most realistic punter's option at the moment. If you want to speculate and just put your pin in the page, then that's another story, which is a bit of fun. But in terms of value, I think it's difficult to see anyone beating Williams at the moment. That's probably a sad part of it from Tom's point of view and mine, and obviously Johnny's as well. But anyway, James, that's been very kind. A very good question, because very few of us here ever think in terms of betting. I would just like to say on behalf of everyone, for all the callers, from everyone here live at Silverstone, from Johnny Herbert,
bye-bye.
Tom Walkinshaw,
bye-bye.
Maurice Hamilton, and myself, Eddie Jordan, thank you very much for joining us. Hope you enjoyed the evening.